interventions and support throughout the course of the day.
I call the meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Could I have a roll call, please?
Robin Lee.
Here.
Matt Jacobs.
Here.
Jason Sean.
Here.
Sally Ponto.
Here.
Wes Bowen here.
5 present, 2 absent. Julie and Jeff couldn't join us. So today we are going to talk about growing together and want to hear your voices. You guys can move there.
Oh.
So you can see it, so you don't have to turn around.
Okay.
Jason, you can go in the front seat if you want. Or you can sit here. Up to you. You get to sit next to me. This is it. So, the Board of Education and the administration wants to thank you all for coming today. I know it's not the nicest of the weather outside, as well as we have the wacky science going on at Town Line, I think. So I know but thank you all for coming. We'll go through a lot of information today and explanations. It's complex and nuanced, but we have a lot of teachers here in case you want to hear their reality. We have Jason Lemke from DLR Group in case you have questions regarding the space and design. And we also have our administrators who are our experts as far as if you have questions regarding specific programming or finances. Huh? No. Okay. So we'll show you our current enrollment and projections. We'll show you our space and programming constraints. We'll show you the EFMP plans, which is the facility master plans. And as I said, master plans, it's a long-term plans. And after that, we'll also show you the financial health of our district. The EFMP plans were put together after hundreds of hours of work by our community members, teachers, and our architects from the DLR group. These plans are fiscally responsible and address our space and programming needs. We need your help to find a solution that best meets the needs of all our students and the vision of the community you have. We want to hear what you have to say. We are here to answer all your questions that you might have now or even later. We'll get you the information you want to make an informed decision. Maybe you're taller than me. You can get it.
Maybe. You try. Sure.
Give me a nod when it's time to
Yeah.
Slide 3, please. All right. Next one.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you were at the first town hall.
No, before. Yeah. Oh, no.
Yep, back,
Yeah. Back.
back,
Back.
everywhere. Other way.
Other way. No. Yes.
Okay. So if you were at the first town hall, this is a familiar slide. This is the history of our buildings. As you can see, the year they were built and the additions that were added on to each of these structures. Middle North is the oldest, being built in '75, and at this point has had no additions. Town Line is obviously the newest. It's built in 2005 and is just 13, well actually it is 13 years old, which is obviously starting to get up there in age as well. This is important given the age of the buildings. All these buildings need work. Part of the work done by the DLR group was to assess the health, life safety, which is code compliance needs, in order to determine the conditions of these buildings. the mechanicals, and DLR also checks items such as lighting, air quality, the compliance to codes such as ADA requirements, amongst others. All of these buildings need significant work to meet those codes. Next. So this first chart is with Aspen and Elementary South and all the enrollment trends. The next 3 slides are going to be broken down like this. From feedback from the community at the last town hall, we had them all on one and it was much difficult to see, so we broke it out. So this is the educational capacity of each of these buildings. And as an example, Aspen has 3 sections per grade with 6 grades, K through 5, so 18 classrooms. At a 25-to-1 ratio, the educational capacity of Aspen is 450. The first bar in this graph shows the enrollment, and each bar shows the enrollment from 2013 and 14 onwards. The last bar is the current enrollment. As we go through these next few slides, we should remember that the enrollment of each of these schools are not neatly divided across the 6 grades or the 3 grades in middle schools. Some grades have higher enrollment, which are referred to as bubble classes, and in some cases the inverse occurs. So we have lower enrollment, but now low enough that we can take a class away to keep that 25-to-1 ratio. So again, here we have Elementary North, which is a capacity of 600 and the enrollment is 538, and Town Line, which the capacity is at 450 and the enrollment is at 473. And as you can see, we've got an upward trend in both of those.
Next.
Moving on to the middle schools, Middle North has a capacity of 650 with an enrollment of 676, and Middle South has a capacity of 775 with an enrollment of 752. As you can see, most of our buildings are over capacity just in these numbers, and we haven't even talked about the daily and specialized programming needs of many of our students. We also note that Middle South in the 2018-2019 class is going to be one of the largest due to the large 5th grade class that will be feeding into it. So now we'll look at a video of all of our principals telling you how of their realities in a day-to-day life at each school.
So at Town Line, we do have sections to space. First of all, for the past 3 years, we've had our Richmond teacher, Mrs. Schmidt, teaching Richmond classes for 4th grade on stage. That does impact Town Line and language chorus. Unfortunately, they're not able to put on the production musicals twice a year. They have to find other ways to perform. We do have sections also with ELL, Russian bilingual students. We have a lot more of them, so we have to service them appropriately. We do have up to 10 students in a very small office space, which is hard to teach 10 students in a very small area. It's a struggle as well. And last we do have art. And does impact Town Line and language, Mrs. Smith, because she doesn't have a art, she has to move from room to room and floor to floor to make sure she teaches art for her students.
At Hawthorne Middle School, our space issues have been in physical education, where for the past 2 years we've discussed the issues in regards to space, with physical education being in the cafeteria, physical education taking place in the cafeteria during the 3 various lunch periods, in the hallways, in the fitness room, as well as in the gym, where would be appropriate place for physical education. In the area of the arts, we have well over 400 kids in band, orchestra, choir. We're pretty packed in those performance areas for band, orchestra, choir for children. We're very proud and always ecstatic about the number of kids in band, orchestra, choir. It's something that is in our strategic plan, something we celebrate as a district. I mean, absolutely, it's been the same space issues we've talked about for years, either with our architectural firm or at board meetings or presentations, that really hasn't changed those past couple of years. Other areas concerned about class sizes. As Chief meeting in February 2018, we've had 52 movements since the beginning of the school year. Every week we get more students moving in, and our scheduled to be in our various classes at Hawthorne Middle School Boulevard. We have classes as well into the 30s. We have various advanced classes in English and mathematics at the 8th grade level. We are almost at, we're at 35, 36. So one of our concerns right now that we've clearly expressed is our classroom sizes.
At school, we have a few spaces concerns that still exist after reorganization. The first one is our cafeteria and its proximity to the main orchestra. We no longer have a dedicated space for students to have lessons throughout the course of the day, so they participate in lessons on the stage. That stage is right next to the cafeteria. So from the hours of 10 o'clock until 12 o'clock, students in their band and orchestra lessons are hearing all of the noise from the cafeteria. The cafeteria itself has to house more students than normal. We have first and second grade eating together. Some changes that have happened in addition to full-day kindergarten. When all of those students are starting together, we're blessed to have space for all of them to sit. We also want to ensure we give all students food line in the appropriate amount of time so they have enough time to eat. In addition to that, we have issues and concerns with our library space. The design itself is difficult and was traditionally and originally built so that we could have a computer lab, workspace for students, and a reading room where the librarian could meet with full classes of students to introduce new literature to them. Since the change in reorganization, we had to take some of that space back so that we had enough office area for ELL and bilingual. The end result is that students no longer have a reading space and need to sit on the floor between computers so that they can listen to new information from the librarian. We also continue to have Elementary South join us every day for PE classes in our multi-purpose room. We're happy to be able to provide that space, but it could be utilized differently so that we would have additional health space, more space for up to 5 sections at 5th grade to have PE classes. Finally, we converted several work areas for teachers into office spaces so that we could have enough small areas for groups of students to receive interventions and support throughout the course of the day. The end result is there is truly no workroom for our teachers. They've done a nice job figuring out how to work around that, but we'd love to have that space back.
Middle School South has faced space challenges over the last several years. Specifically, we have 54 more students this school year than we did 3 years ago. Looking specifically at our space issues, our cafeteria is a high needs area. We do not have the capacity right now for our lunch periods, and with growing enrollment, that's going to continue to present issues for us. Additionally, the cafeteria doubles as our choir space. So all of our 6th, 7th, and 8th grade choir students have that class in the cafeteria on a daily basis. Our PE classes have had to take place in hallways. This specifically presents a challenge when we're dismissing from lunch and PE classes are happening in the hallways. Our 6th grade classes are large, with more students anticipated to be here. We have several class sections that are over 30 currently. Mrs. Ray, one of our writing teachers, is teaching out of our resource center and not in a classroom. If you walk our building here at Middle School South, you will notice that we have physical education as well as music equipment in the hallways for a lack of storage space. Finally, we have several science classes in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade that are taking place in non-science classroom designed classrooms. Without any new space, we will continue to face challenges here at Middle School South, and that will have an impact on programming as well as our students' experiences.
Hi, and welcome to Elementary South. We too are having some space issues here at Elementary South. We house 750 to 780 children. That number fluctuates throughout the school year. We have 5 or 6 classes of every grade level. And with 32 homerooms, traveling to specials makes it difficult. Some of the things that we've had to accommodate because of space are having a mobile classroom. For the past 2 years, we have art and health out in the mobiles. Also, we have music on the stage. Now, music on the stage is also adjacent to the gym space, so they're fighting for sound all the time. Also, we have band and orchestra lessons in our old kitchen, which you'll see on the video. The orchestra large group lessons play in the morning in the same room as the cafeteria, so breakfast is going on with large group orchestra in the morning, and band is going on in the gym adjacent to HAP daycare, so they are also fighting for noise in the morning. Additionally, we have only one main hallway here at Elementary South, so during our lunch hour, we travel approximately 300 kids down the one main hallway to get in and out of the cafeteria. In addition to that, we have gym classes that go over to Aspen for PE, and we also have 3 or 4 gym classes that share one gym space. So as you can see, Elementary South is tight on space.
Hi, we have a few places at Elementary North where we are feeling the crunch of having increased enrollment and smaller space. One of the areas, Elementary North is one of our older buildings. We have only one gym and one multi-purpose room. In order to provide PE and physical education and health service supports to all of our students, we do utilize our cafeteria. However, our cafeteria is unavailable not only for the time that we provide lunch and breakfast services to our students, but also for an opportunity to obviously clean it and have it ready again. This year, the way we're feeling that is our kindergarten classes, 2 of them are combined. 2 teachers are working together with a larger group of kindergartners to provide PE when in one of those spaces when the cafeteria is unavailable. Sometimes students are also utilizing the hallways, some of the long hallways, in times like these, especially with this weather when we aren't able to be outside and take advantage of our field spaces. So the PE spaces is definitely a challenge here at Elementary North. We do not have a stage of any kind or any areas like that. So to do whole school assemblies, we need to do them on an angle in between our gym and our cafeteria. Also not ideal and very challenging. So our open houses and any sorts of presentations occur in that way as well.
So at Town Lane, we do have some issues with space. First of all, for the past
the capacity in a school is a complex issue, and we're going to go over 3 ways that we have to look at it. The first is code capacity. This is a fire code capacity for a room. It's the number of people a space can hold and allows for a safe exit. A good example is the signs and elevators you see in restaurants around the area. The second one is the educational capacity. This is based on the size of a classroom and the number of students to a teacher ratio that a school assigns. And at D73, we try to use a 25-to-1 ratio. So a building with 24 classrooms has an educational capacity of 600. And the third one is program capacity. This one takes into account the needs of the students in that particular classroom. The 25-to-1 ratio will fluctuate because of that. Some examples of why this capacity can change from room to room is special education programs like LOP. These are our kids with the most needs, such as Down syndrome. The ratio by law for this particular program is 10 students to a teacher. So if we need 4 classrooms to service these students, that effectively drops the space to 4 classrooms. That is 100 students. So the capacity of that actual building has gone down. We might not have 10 students in first grade, for example, but to accommodate 4 students in that grade, the ratio of students in the other section of the first grade would have to go up. Another one is our English language learners, or ELL, and bilingual population has increased over the last few years. And according to the law, a bilingual classroom can only be at 90% class size. So now the other sections in the grade might have to accommodate a larger number of students. And in our special ed population, the 504 and the IEP programs have also increased in the past few years. And according to those laws, a classroom can have a ratio of 70 to 30 of special ed IEP students. So now some other sections of the grade have more students as well. And then there are the kids who need to have a one-on-one aid, which then adds an adult or adults into the classroom, which already adds to more capacity problems. Okay, so there are programs that impact capacity, and we've already mentioned some of them. We have special education programs and the ELL and the bilingual that affect capacity, and here are some other ones. We also need small offices for servicing kids in speech and hearing, occupational therapy, small motor skills, and physical therapy, as well as large motor skills. So when enrollment increases, we need more space to do our electives such as PE, music, and art. Similarly, we need more space for interventions and enrichment. We also are limited in what clubs and sports we can offer due to the space constraints. Many of you are familiar with the CASARDA study. We had seen significant increasing enrollment in the few years around 2012 to 2013. To determine if this was a blip or a sustained phenomenon, we had Professor Casarda of UNC do a demographic study. Casarda's studies have been used by other districts across the country, including many in the surrounding area. Our study was done in 2015 and 16. Series B projects a sustained growth, whilst the Series C is the accelerated growth that we are noticing. As you can see, we had growth that surpassed C in the last 2 years, and as this shows, we are exceeding even the Series B sustained growth. This year there has been a dip, which is where much of the confusion within the community has been based off of. Bear in mind the new developments, Cuneo, Melody Farms, Woodland Chase, etc., were supposed to be done this past year during the original study and have been delayed. This chart reflects that in the dip. We are still over the Series B sustained growth, so the district took these projections for planning the additions at the Series C projections. Building for Series B doesn't make sense in the short or long run if we've already surpassed the Series B trend. If we build a few more classrooms and the students enrolling are delayed, we can get our class sizes down, as so many of you want to offer more programming. Yeah.
4388.
Right. Yeah. $16.17 is 4388. 4344. Yeah. We good? All right, so we have the locations of the 5 developments that are being built. We have Woodland Chase, which is approximately 17 houses. Icon Builders, which is about 10 houses. Cuneo, the big one, which is 128. Melody Farms, the other large one, which is 250 units. And Riviera Estates, which is about 30 houses. We also still have 2 parcels of land of 19 acres and 11 acres in Mundelein that can be developed and are within the district's boundaries. School district boundaries are complex and often not physically feasible to change. We lose tax dollars while giving them up to a surrounding district, and even if that district wants it or can take the additional students, they may not always be able to. So it's kind of it's a legal nightmare from all the discussions we've had about the Mundelein acreage that's still available for development.
So the next few slides will be done by me. So to alleviate some of our space concern, the Board of Education decided to build a kindergarten building in partnership with the Park District using our cash reserve. This partnership has saved the district approximately $5 million between the land and the access to the gym at the Sullivan Center, which they built. So we are grateful to the Park District, the Village of Vernon Hills, and the library for their support in this project. The building will house all the kindergarten children except for the children. The construction documents are out to bid, and if everything goes as planned, in fall of 2019. This building will give temporary breathing room to the elementary schools because the kindergarten kids would come from there, but there is no relief to the middle schools, and that is something that we all need to remember. This is the breakdown of the operational cost of the kindergarten building. That is estimated at $590,000. This includes supplies, transportation, utilities, and personnel. The operational cost of the kindergarten building will be offset from a number of sources. This includes reallocation of resources, efficiencies in the facility of operations, and some additional revenue from the new construction and anticipated increase in the CPI, because this is about the first year it's going to go up. Because of the kindergarten building, we are going to have some space in elementary buildings. So people, what do you need to build? Okay, this is what listed are the displaced programs. So Aspen has 3 kindergarten classes that will move out. The displaced programs are band on stage. They have one ELL classroom which is being conducted in the library, a ELL classroom which is in the computer lab. 2 special education teachers are sharing 1 classroom, and they have no health room. So they have more displaced programs than the 3 classrooms that will get opened up. So there is essentially, effectively, no relief to Aspen. The next, Elementary South. 5 classrooms are going to open up. The displaced programs are art, which is in a portable, health, which is in a portable, music, which is on stage, as you just saw Dr. Martin say, gym, they share their gym space at Aspen. The story room in library is used for special education children. Band and orchestra lessons are in the old kitchen. It is a kitchen. And 7 ELL teachers share 2 classrooms, and they service 256 students. So it is not a small number of students that those 7 teachers in 2 classrooms are servicing. There are more displaced programs than the 5 classrooms that are opening up. So effectively, no relief. Elementary North, 4 classrooms are opened up. This is probably the only school that has relief because they have 2 special education teachers sharing 1 classroom. They still have classroom space, but Cuneo development of 128 houses is expected to go into Elementary North, and we expect 80 students from there coming into Elementary North. So doing the math, they have some space, but as Cuneo keeps getting built up, they will be completely full at that point. The next is Townline Elementary. 3 classrooms open up. Townline has displaced programs which are art on a cart, special education teachers are in the library, and the enrichment is on stage. So all classrooms will be filled as we expect the growth, again, will be squeezed for space in that. So the next slides that we are going to show you are the EFMP plans. These plans are the best plans we have had after careful vetting by our educators, architects, and the core committee, which included teachers, architects, as well as our community members. They did a lot of scenarios. They spent hundreds of hours going through all possible combinations, and these are the vetted. This is also the most fiscally responsible plan. The spaces in this are going, and almost all schools are going to be modified because as the buildings are old, they need to be modified to bring them up to code. There are additions and modifications to solve our space and programming needs, but also to account for the growth in the coming years. Please remember that the dollar amount that you see on the slides will change because it has been delayed. So there's an increase of about 4 to 5% because of the delay. And the whole project will not be done at one time. We are not going to touch all 6 schools at one time. It will be phased. Once we know the total scope of the project from your input and support, we'll have our experts, which is DLR and LAMP, run the numbers again. So we will have the exact dollar amounts for construction that we want to do, We will break down each phase of, as I said, not all the buildings will be done at the same time. So when we break it down into each phase, how that each phase will impact you in your tax, we will let you know that too. The blue boxes are the additions and the gray are modified or renovated spaces. All schools are getting upgrades to code requirements, as I already mentioned. Aspen doesn't have a lot of additions. It has the STEM lab addition. The gray spaces, it has modifications of the music room, the library, the health room. Most of the spaces are modifications. The next is Elementary South. Elementary South has a lot of additions that need to be built along with the renovation of spaces. Most of their additions are classrooms and support classrooms, as you saw that they are needed. PE space because they're going to Aspen. And if you've been in Elementary South gym, you know it needs space. Music area amongst others. The next one is Elementary North. It also needs a few additions and renovations, mostly the PE space and the cafeteria where you are currently sitting, so you know how that space is working. But the main addition to this building was Elementary EC Pre-K, which is our early childhood and pre-K classrooms. We currently have 187 students at Lincoln School in Mundelein. We run the EC Pre-K program with Mundelein in partnership with the Mundelein Elementary School in Fremont. If the partnership dissolves for any reason, unforeseen reason in the future, we need to accommodate those 187 students. They are ours, they will come to us. This is the contingency plan for that, building those 7 classrooms on Elementary North. This would have been the last phase of our plan because we and the parents who have students at Lincoln are extremely satisfied with the program. We do not see any reason to dissolve our partnership at all. As I said, it's a contingency plan. We would have done the cost-benefit analysis at the phase where we would have had to build to see what it would cost us to lease the space at Lincoln versus to bring the EC Pre-K back for the build. Not only is it the cost of building versus leasing, but it's also the programming. We share resources with the Mundelein and Fremont High School, and it is cost effective to share some highly qualified personnel that we need to service those students. If it was decided at that time it wasn't fiscally responsible to bring EC Pre-K back, we would not have issued bonds for the construction of these classrooms. If you don't issue the bonds, you do not pay for them. In the EFMP, in the referendum, it was a permission to issue bonds. It doesn't mean that if they don't get issued, you don't pay for it. Townline Elementary. Townline Elementary needed classrooms. Because it's one of our newest buildings, it doesn't need a lot of renovation other than mostly the library. Middle North, it is squeezed for space. It needs a lot. It needs the gym. It needs the cafeteria. It needs music rooms. It needs classrooms. There's a lot of construction that goes on to Middle North, and as you can see, every space around it, there's a blue box that is needed. Middle South. Middle South doesn't need a lot of construction, but they still need spaces, classroom additions. They need PE and storage space because right now they're running in the hallways, which isn't very safe for people visiting or for the students themselves. So in all our schools, we are renovating our library spaces. The new spaces will provide spaces for collaboration and quiet spaces for individual work. It will also provide ready access for technology. If you can see, that is Elementary North's library, and this is what is one of the libraries we hope will look like, where you have access to the computers, there are some quiet spaces, it's more inviting and more engaging. The new libraries integrate reading with communication and creation. Some of our neighboring school districts have done library renovations, and if you would like to go and see them, you should. In middle schools mostly, if you ever go after the school is over, you will see lots of kids sitting in the library. Either they are doing their homework, getting help, getting tutored, and this makes the library more engaging and inviting for them. It keeps them more interested in being at school. The other thing was STEM. Another renovation or addition is the STEM space in all schools. You can call it STEM, STEAM, makerspace, or science labs. It is just an interdisciplinary space that accommodates wide variety of materials and activities. It also accommodates experimentation and observation over a period of time. Just as we had dedicated spaces in elementary schools for PE, music, and arts, we have a space equipped with technology and tools to carry out hands-on investigation and foster critical thinking and problem solving. Most people agree that integration of science, math, and technology is important for students. That is where the jobs of the future will be. The important aspect to remember is just because we teach kids music in kindergarten doesn't mean they will pick up music for a career. But the benefits of exposure to music, every kid benefits with that. Not every kid who plays soccer or basketball is going to be a Messi or Jordan. But playing outside and being a team player has lifelong benefits. Similarly, exposing students to STEM in an interdisciplinary curriculum has long-term benefits that they will need for their future. So most of the time, the argument that we have heard is that the STEM can be taught in classrooms in elementary. There's a lot of curriculum that cannot be done in the classrooms. The towers that you saw or will see in the Hawthorne highlights that our fourth graders built with, which could withstand earthquakes and shaking for a certain period of time, amazing works if you could read the Hawthorne highlights. But for that, you should talk to the teachers who did it and see how much space they had to clear up, how much programming they had to adjust, because a tower is not built in a 40-minute class period. So it takes a lot of time, there's a lot of clearance, there's a lot of adjustment to curriculum to be made so that the kids can do that. Some of the other examples that I can give is, nowadays everybody does robots for coding, and that is one thing that we want our kids to learn. We need extremely a lot of space, cannot be done within a 15 by 15 or 20 by 20 classroom. Water. With the books and the carpets, I am not even going to go there. I think our janitorial staff is not going to be at all happy if we decide to start doing that in the classrooms. How about flights or rolling the cars? You know, yes, you can roll it in a 20 by 20 space, but after that, if you are problem solving and seeing if your car can go straight or longer, you don't have the space to run it longer, and then you're back in the hallway along with the students who are doing the mile run in the hallways. It's not just possible to do everything that you want in the hallways or within the classroom without extreme, and our teachers are currently doing it, but there's a lot of adjustments that they're making to the curriculum and to the teaching to create that space so that our kids can benefit from this. This space, whatever we want to call it, is a merger of curriculum content and ideas, giving students the opportunity to apply scientific method to everyday life. This program will teach students computational thinking and focus on real-world applications of world's problem solving. This is important to make our kids ready and competitive with their international peers. This is not about competing with kids in Libertyville and Lincolnshire. The college is national and international now. We need to give them an edge. We should do this for them. The next few slides are finance slides. In Illinois, the local revenue is the major source of funding from schools. Illinois is ranked, I think, the last time I checked, about 48th or 49th in the nation and how our funding that we get from state. So we are heavily dependent on the low property taxes for our school. Until the funding from state changes, we are stuck with the taxes to pay for our children's education. Where does the money go? About 85% of the expenses are in salary and benefits of all the teachers and the support personnel, such as nurses, administration, janitorial, clerks, and the supply needed to run a school. The rest is supplies needed for education, such as tech, books, and transportation and food. Most of the money is distributed in those regions. How much do we spend to educate our child? We spend $11,992 per student. We are lower than most of our surrounding district. Most of the money per pupil goes towards salaries and benefits of all the staff. That is followed by purchased services such as transportation and supplies. This is where your curriculum is, this is where your food is, this is where your transportation is, tech is, everything. The aids that you want, the interventions that we need, the enrichment we need, everything is here in $11,992. The increase in consumer price index we get goes towards maintaining the increases in operational cost as the prices increase. As the years go by, every year there's an increase in price. We pay for it through the increase in our CPI. As you can see in this graph, the blue line shows the increase in revenue due to new construction. It's only new construction. However, the red line shows the expenditure due to new students at the same time. We have spent more because the new students is the number of students multiplied by the 11,992. That's the number that you get. The blue is the revenue we get from new construction. We have spent more because of increased enrollment than we have generated in new construction. You can see the deficit, and that deficit is about $4.2 million. We have hired new teachers and staff to maintain the class sizes and provide the programming and services for our students. So that is the deficit. If we did not hire the new teachers or the new staff, that would be increased class sizes and reduced programming and benefit. We have heard, how come the high school has a lot of money? They do. The red bar is us. The red boundary is us. That's our school district. This is the area we tax. The blue is District 128. Their EAV is 2.3 times greater than ours. So they collect more money. Their enrollment is 3,270 as compared to ours at 4,344. They have fewer students. One of our teachers pointed out to me, which I thought I should share, is we have younger kids. We have kids for 9 years, K through 8. When they enter kindergarten, they need help. They need help with speech. They need help with hearing. They need help with writing. They have anxiety from coming to school and leaving their parents. They need to work on their motor skills. We provide all these services, and we do a phenomenal job for our students exiting out of these services by the time they are ready for high school. All these services cost. Where did he go? No, yes. This is generic framework, independent of the plan selected. Depending on the plan and the dollar amount will be calculated, as I mentioned previously. We will run the numbers again. DLR and LAMP will run them for us. That plan will be in phases. It is not a one sum lump sum thing. Here are some of the things I want to stress. This is a rough framework. We have a debt that falls off in 2024. So after the amount the amount per household that you're paying till 2024, it will decrease a little bit. If the community approves, say, a $45 million, okay, there's not a 45, so $40 million plan, it will be done in phases. We have 5 years from the approval on the ballot to issue bonds. So if the first phase is about only 15 million or 20 million, the tax will go up only for 15 to 20 million for that first phase. The tax will increase as each phase, or we issue the bonds to complete the next phase of this. This graph shows you the approximate tax increase. That is for the full amount for the value of your house. It is for the full amount. So if you decide that we approve for $40 million and the home value is 400, the full amount is 325, which we will, when we do come back with a plan, we will break it down by the phases. We will break it down to what your thing will be per phase, and especially when the debt falls off in 2024 as to what. But right now, if you have to make an educated guess and an educated decision, for $40 million for a 400,000 home value, it is $325 a year is what you would pay approximately. It is an approximate number. Please be aware of that. The community has tough decisions to make. If we stay the course, there still is a cost for the portables. The portables are not free. There's an increased cost for renting them. There's per annual basis rental, but there's a lot of upfront costs that we have to pay for the foundation, for the lighting, to get them stable. We spend on some other things, right? So there's a lot of cost involved. We will have increased class sizes as there are only so many portables that can be added. This will impact programming. You can't have a varied curriculum in the portable. As kids at Elementary South know, when they went into the portable for art, they landed up having to give up their pottery because you cannot put a kiln in there and the water sources was hard. So programming will also be affected, not only just the class sizes. The plan we put forth was holistic. However, if we decide not to do the total plan, and the community should be aware that the needs of the schools will be prioritized. Not all schools will receive the additions or remodel. And when we make the programming adjustments, they will be equitable across the district. Just because you have the space does not mean you get to keep the program if somebody across the street is not getting it. Schools are one of the biggest drivers of real estate values of home. So we should compare our schools to our neighbors, as we will be competing with them when we have to sell our houses, if we have to move. We all love our children's teachers. They do a phenomenal job. We have some really, really awesome educators, and we should try to keep them with us. We should look at what increased class sizes and teaching in portable does to their morale, and will we be able to attract the best to get our children ready for the future. The plan we put forth addressed the needs of all our students and distributed resources in an equitable manner. That is and has been part of our strategic plan. We wanted to assure the community that the board and the administration will draw plans based on the dollar amount and the community supports. These decisions, whatever will be made, will be based on equity for all students. Thank you. We will take questions. And if we don't have answers, we will get information to you. If you don't have it today, if you have to leave, we have note cards at the back. Mr. Langdon has so kindly enough agreed to be our moderator so that to keep us on track. And if you could just give me a minute to sit down and turn myself.
Good evening. Good? Okay. Good evening. My name is John Langland, and here to just help facilitate some Q&A. And so if you do have questions, we would ask you to come on up here to the mic. When you are finished with your question, we would ask you to sign in over here. Anyone that has questions that we're not able to answer this evening, we will definitely look to get those and get those posted on the district website. So we can open it up at this time. We've got our board members here to answer questions. We have DLR here, representative, to answer questions. You've heard a lot of information here this evening. If anyone has any questions, please step on up.
Good evening. I have two questions at the start. First of all, I saw what the current capacity is of each of the schools, but I didn't see what the future capacity could be if we had these improvements. Do you have those numbers? And I think that'd be an important thing to share with the public, as well as how much, you saw the CASARDA projections, so you know where we're going. We want to make sure that we're going to have enough space for those kids that are coming. So I would have liked to have seen the eventual amount of space that will be in each classroom. And then my other question is, why is South so overcrowded? I mean, looking at all the other schools, it's like, oh my goodness, the middle schools are crowded as well, but the South has just got so many more kids than their capacity. Is there any way we could move children around? I know you had this whole big thing a couple years ago about changing the schools, but when one school is just so overcrowded, it seems like something needs to be done. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
So on our webpage, we do have the plan that we had presented before, and for each building, there is a projected capacity. So I can read them off to you now, or you can go look in detail, and for each building, for example, Middle North, you've got the current capacity of 650, the projected after the change is
795.
795. Yeah, so the information is available there after we add all the classrooms.
When we look at the CASARDA projections, then how long will that take us?
2026.
Okay, that's another good question to definitely have an answer to. Thanks.
What about South? There's people there.
You know, without having had, is mine on? Can anybody hear me? I have such a bad cold, I can't even hear my own voice in my own head. But as far as South being very overcrowded compared to some of the other schools and moving people around, as a board, we have not yet discussed moving anybody in or out of South as far as boundaries go for the neighborhoods that feed into there right now. So I definitely can't speak on behalf of anybody, but it was really tough on the community to move children around. We would like to try to prevent that if at all possible. I think right now, off the top of my own head, our best bet is to take the areas of new development and make sure that they are not placed into a school that's already overcrowded, which is why we took Cuneo, which was originally in the town line boundary, and moved it over to Elementary North, so that we're not moving already existing families. It's giving us a chance to fill up what was somewhat an underutilized space with new development. So I think going forward, that's going to have to be something that we definitely look at. And then, of course, depending on the solution the community is willing to support, it may have to come down to some tough decisions like that. So we'll see going forward. But yeah, I mean, they definitely get a lot of move-ins and move-outs all year long because of the neighborhoods that feed into them.
Hi. Matt, this question may be for you, because I think at large, the community may be a little confused why Elementary North, when you look at the numbers, it looks like they're under capacity, but they really are not. Can you elaborate a little more on that? I know you said, you know, the special education, but when you look at the capacity slides, Elementary North looks like the capacity is low, but they really aren't because of all the special services. I don't know if you can help. I understand it because I've been diving into a lot of these numbers, but I want to make sure the community here understands that, because when you show the slides and you've got the bar graphs and you're showing the capacity, Elementary North looks very low, but they really are not. There's a member of the audience that can tell you her son's class is packed, but another class in the same grade may have less than 20 or 21. So every classroom is not equal because you have to look at the makeup of the students in that class.
Right.
So if you could speak to that a little bit more so that everybody understands that, that would be great. Sorry.
It's all right. And Nick or Sonali can jump in too. Again, with the Elementary North, we have the LOP program, which is kind of why we highlighted that, where it really does affect capacity, where you can only have 10 kids in a classroom, so you're eating up an entire class where you might have 25 kids in there, and now you only have 10.
Yeah, for that particular program, it's housed for the all grade levels at Elementary North, as opposed to having those students having to do multiple transitions, which was happening a few years ago. So we house that whole program for our highest need students in one building, so they have a more secure environment and less transitions as they were having. And if you take a regular classroom or one of our classrooms and utilize it for that program, it takes away the capacity for a 25-to-1 for that room, because it's now being used for a specific program as opposed to an additional classroom for a grade level. And so that has a direct impact on the ability for a building to have more of what you would consider your general ed classrooms available for that. And they are our students. We love having them here, and it's a great program, and they really do a nice job. So we want to make sure we give them the best program they can possibly have as well. And this helps us concentrate our services for those students right there. I don't know, Katie's shaking her head saying, I got it right today. All right, no, but yeah, so it is one of those things that does have an impact. Similarly, as other programs do, when we talk about ELL or bilingual programming, we do have 63 different languages in our district. Elementary South, I believe, has like 36 different languages in its building. And so when you get to a certain number, you have to provide different servicing for the students, since that requires a different teaching or intervention. And that requires classroom space. You can't do that in the hallway. You can't do it in the back of the room. You really are trying to help those students become bilingual in essence and help them understand the curriculum and the content. And so we need learning spaces, and I believe you heard in the presentation, we have 7 bilingual teachers in 2 classrooms. And imagine if you have 36 languages, 7 teachers, 256 students in 2 classrooms, that's a difficult process to maintain long term. It does have an impact on what the students can learn and be prepared for. And again, we want them to get the best they possibly can. So that also restricts classrooms that we're using.
Hi. I don't have kids. So I just wanted to come here and see what was going on. I kind of have a unique perspective on this. I understand that there's an overcrowding issue. That's blatantly obvious. My question is this. So say you get the $40 million, it gets paid off by 2024, correct? Is that what we said?
Our current debt for like the Town Line and other goes off in 2024.
Okay, so if we borrow $40 million to fund this, how long before you outgrow it again? So my concern is we get to that point and all of a sudden 2024, and now we need another $50 million. So does it make sense to look at building something that's going to sustain the growth for, say, 20 years as opposed to 6?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. 10 years is a really good long projection for growth. It's about the best you can do to get an accurate estimate. And so that we're working off of that. And looking at the available land space, this is my 6th year. When I came, I remember interviewing with the original board. Do we expect any growth? No, there's really not any space available. Well, Cuneo sold land, and then folks find these little bitty pockets of space, Poets Corner right across the street. So we think we have a really good estimate of what we think will be occurring, and providing us that so we don't have to come back, but there is not a guarantee. And on the 2024 debt, what's interesting, when that 2024 debt comes off, it almost, what you're paying now is probably what you would be paying in 2024 with the new debt. So when it comes off, it will probably drop a little bit. So if somebody that is right now experiencing, okay, I'm going to add $76 to my yearly bill, in 2024, it'll drop to what they were paying right now. So it's not net zero for somebody, but there is a short window of 6 years that you will see relief come back to yourself. But for your question on growth, we're trying to do the best we can to estimate what we think is the worst case scenario of growth. We're experiencing that, and you saw in there is, you don't want to build for Series B. The board was very wise when they started this project a while back. Don't build for Series B if you're at Series B or above it, because you're automatically shrinking, you're out of space when you construct. So projecting off the Series C is wise because it would allow us to build space for that projection. And if we fall in between, it gives us a little bit of room, and hopefully then that will alleviate any long-term problems that we might have.
So to add to that, the master plan that we came up with was to accommodate the projection as of 2026. So that's looking out 10 years from 16 when we did this, looking at the highest projected Series C. So it was to accommodate from the entire district that amount of kids.
What is that number at? What's that capacity number at?
For C, it's 5,069.
And we're at what?
4483?
4344.
So I wanted to ask some questions about the CASARTA numbers as well. And I want to make sure I understand what's being presented. Now, I saw a Series B and a Series C. Was there not also a Series A?
Yes, a Series A is if we have declining enrollment, where it's lower than we would expect. So if we were at 4,000, a Series A might predict it to be at 39.
Okay, so my understanding is that is set up as a statistical confidence interval with the Series B being the center point, and then a high estimate and a low estimate. Is that correct?
Roughly, yeah.
Okay, so I would like to understand then, since the middle case Series B would be 50% chance of being higher and 50% chance of being lower. And then the Series A having an equal chance of occurring as the Series C case happening, why the board chose to go with the Series C, the highest estimate. Did you consider other alternatives?
So the A and the C is not it's not a probability of 50% hitting one or the other. It was based on looking at the trend, looking at, however CASARTA does it. The reason why we chose C is because for the last 3-4 years, we were exceeding the B. So we had a previous projection with the B, and our actuals was way above B. So to say, let's build towards B would have been underestimating what our actuals was. So we went with, based on what the actuals was, C was the most likely that we would hit.
So is it not true that our enrollment varies year to year?
Oh, absolutely.
So this is why we use statistics when we analyze this, because a year-to-year number may go up and it may go down, which we have now seen it's gone down. I read the CASARTA thing about a year ago, and I don't remember the details. That's why I asked if it was a statistical analysis, which your first response was yes. Now your next response is no. Could you make that available so I could refresh my memory on what was done there?
Yeah, I will double check. I think it's on our webpage, but I will double check.
I have had difficulty finding it. I haven't had a lot of time.
Sure.
But
it is on the webpage, but it's
okay.
tough
It is hard to find.
I will work with my staff to repost it and say CASARTA report, and then that way you can find it.
If you could
Sure.
give your email address, we could email it to you too.
I would prefer not to. I'll find it on the website. Again, I would like to understand then, did we look at alternatives? Have we presented options? Are we considering presenting options to the community? Because I've seen a stay the course, and I've seen the high end of the CASARTA study, but I don't see any other options here. And I would like to see other options at least considered during the planning phase. We have
options
to.
With numbers, options with dollars. I'm sorry, I don't understand what.
I'm concerned about the capacity, because if we don't see the headcount growth that we're building to, we're going to put a lot of money into bricks, and bricks don't teach our kids. Teachers do, and I'm concerned that we're going to overbuild, based on the statistics that is my understanding of that survey. My basic understanding when I read that was, we should expect 425 new students in 10 years from growth within the community, and then there was a plus or minus 375 due to additional students being added in existing housing. I went to a meeting, spent an hour trying to understand this. Nothing that the district staff told me led me to believe otherwise. In fact, it reinforced my understanding. And I think we're taking on a lot of risk here, and maybe we need this capacity, and maybe we don't. But I think there has just been a basic assumption that we're building for this worst case, and I think we ought to rethink how we get to that point. We ought to have an alternative in case those numbers don't come in. Because if we spend this money now on buildings, we can't spend it on teachers, and that's what's important.
So one of the things that Sonali addressed was we can do this in phases. So to address the possibility of having options, one of the options is, all right, we don't have to do all of this at once. We can say, okay, where's our biggest need? Well, Middle North. We saw on one of the charts that had the biggest overcapacity. Address that first. We can then, the next year, where's our enrollment? Is it following the trend that we had thought it would come? If it is, okay, we continue to build. We can do this not all at once. We can add to it as needed based on our enrollment. So the ability for us to do it in phases gives us the option that you're looking at.
My concern on that is once we approve the spending.
We don't have to spend it all if we don't need to.
Right. We'll have approval to do it, and we will not have to come back to the community and explain what got spent on. We'll just have the authority to spend it. And I think if you truly want to get community about a 10-year period here. We're not talking about what's going to happen next year. I think that would be a very good approach. I would really appreciate to see some planning laid out there. I think we're assuming a lot of risk here. I don't think that's been brought out to the community. And there is a danger. There's a danger will come up short. We need to do that. And I think we ought to take both of these into account, not just one.
But we have, the whole plan was to build it in stages, as we have consistently said. And every basis, we were going to evaluate our needs and the projections and the numbers and what the growth was. So we have been consistently saying that it is a plan to be built in stages. This is not an all-out to-go plan.
So I understand that the building's going to happen in stages because that's how building works. But why can't we do the improvement stages? Why can't we go back 5 years from now, validate our numbers, and do another assessment? Why don't we identify the critical information we need to make this decision and then track that information very closely? I mean, we put up numbers tonight and we did it in Millville. How many of those students are coming from new housing areas and how many are coming from existing housing? I think that would be a great piece of information to know that we had a year to dig into that.
Can I say a couple things?
Yeah, go ahead.
Certain about this before we commit funds, and you're asking us to commit a lot of money with no chance to be
I wanted to address a couple of your concerns. I'm assuming that there was other people that share your concerns as well. First of all, you mentioned, so once we ask for this money, who's to say it ends up getting used the way that we said it was going to be used? The legal parameters around not only the wording on the ballot and how that has to end up matching what we end up using these funds for, but the actual legal parameters on what you can even ask for these funds to be used for are extremely tight. So if we got approval for that money, it's not like we can say, oh, you know, it would be fun if we gave everybody a new trombone and pass out trombones. It ends up being...
That is not my concern. I understand the legal parameters around it. My concern is, and I have seen this happen, I am aware of a school district where this has happened. They built a building, and then 5 years later, they didn't have the students, and they had to, the building sits empty, even though they paid for it.
Right.
And that's my point, is once you set this architecture in place and you go down this path, it's going to be too late to re-architect. The flexibility has to be built into the initial planning, and there should be stages on this where you come back and validate your numbers and come back to the community for additional approval instead of doing a one-shot deal that we have to live with until 2026.
Okay, I hear you. I think Sonali and Jason addressed some of that with the stages of construction. I do hear you. I think the other idea that, well, what if we lose students? What if we don't see these students? Unless some trend within the village approvals changes, I really can't imagine that we're going to decrease enrollment or suddenly stop getting enrollment. I believe the CASARDA report does list a rough breakdown of what's expected from generational or neighborhood turnover versus new construction. It is broken down in there to address the other issue. And I think the idea that we might possibly overbuild, I think is not nearly as big of a risk as what happens if we sit on our hands and do nothing. So as far as affecting the education, as far as affecting the work environment for our teachers, their work environment is our kids' learning environment. So despite the fact that they've been super flexible and accommodating, I would hate to keep continuing to ask them to put up with some of these conditions. So,
could we give somebody else a chance for a little?
One
Not to
last
kick off,
thing.
because I agree with a lot of what you're saying.
There was a question about how many students are coming from the new houses. We're not, the growth that we've seen, we haven't received any new students from new housing yet. Those have not fully developed. I drove through Cuneo today, 128 home site. They've got six lots sold, 4 of them under construction, 2 of them right now being framed. So it's moving along, but we have not received any new students from new housing. All the students we've received are from existing housing at this time.
No, we listed out of the 60 lots, 30 lots still need to be built.
And I wasn't thinking that. I was thinking of Cuneo and Melody and
out of
here,
Riviera,
so.
out of 60, the 30 still need to be built. So that's why we left that as 30 still to be. Yes, that have yet to be built. The rest of them are ours already. We have them.
I have to go back and look.
We'll have to go back and look at
And I'll
this.
make sure that's posted in the next day or two on the webpage fairly prominently, so you can go back and review.
I just had a couple of questions. One about the actual structures of this meeting. Is the intent to get community feedback and have community discussion? Yes. Then is the content that's going to be taking up the first 45 minutes going to be new in every meeting, or will it be the same? Because this was the same content as the one before, and it cuts into the feedback time that you can get. I mean, there's lively discussions that want to happen. You have a line of people, and you know, we've all seen the video. We all know there's a space issue. That's why we're here. So I'm just a little concerned about the level of new information that comes during these meetings. And so one is, will the rest of these meetings be the same as this, or will they be new each time? And then the next question I have is, are there actual suggestions for the phases? And is that what you're wanting feedback on? Because it sounds like the plan's already designed. You have the what you're going to build and everything. So this feedback isn't really how to spend the money in terms of what you're going to fix in each school. Is the feedback about the phases? What is it that you actually want from us?
Anybody else?
I can address at least part of what you said. So the presentation was part repeat tonight, and it was part new. So a lot of it was developed based upon the questions that were asked at the February 21st meeting, as far as where our expenses are, our operational expenses are going and things like that. As far as the feedback that we're looking for tonight, I think no plan right now is 100% solid. I think we're still at the phase where we're taking feedback about ideas of how to address this space issue in order to not completely reinvent the wheel. We're going off of the plan that was formed with the 2,500 cumulative hours spent between the core team and DLR last year, or I guess at this point it's now been a little bit over a year. But I don't think it's necessarily about what would you do in what phase, so much as what do you see for the priorities. If the community says, listen, maximum we're going to support is $20 million, then we need to know, what would you take on this plan, what would you take off this plan?
Okay, then I think having like the agenda and kind of the topics and the time allotted for actual community like questions would be helpful to just get more information, because everywhere I went where I had conversations and various things was all about, do you guys know? Do you guys know? That people didn't really know.
Okay.
So I think getting that out in ahead of the meetings will make these meetings a lot more productive, and things that you can just put almost like in any business where you're going to have your meeting. You have your slides, your charts, your pre-reads, so to speak. That's all available already, so just tell everybody, check it out before you come. That way we can get straight to it when we get here, because a lot of that, we can access it already, and we already have, because we're already concerned and we're watching, right? So, you know, I want you guys to deal with Middle South, right? That's my feedback for you. That's the priority for me. But I think we need to have more of the back and forth and less of the talking at us, because we already know there's an issue.
And that's fine, and we're not going to cut off question and answer. I mean, I don't think that was part of the idea, so I wouldn't worry about that.
No timer.
You see a timer? Oh, I can't see a timer.
All right, so I actually have a few different questions. The first question that I have is regarding the plans that were in place. So I attended all those meetings. year ago when we looked at doing this, and we looked into doing a referendum, and we looked at all the different options, and we spent a lot of time. There was a committee that spent a ton of time looking into the community, looking to what would be supported, doing phone polls, and coming back with what some of the ideas were. And there was those different options that were given to us, right? One was renting a warehouse and modifying it. One was building a new elementary building and moving other things around and doing some additions. And the last was like building on everything there, right? I don't think that was the correct order, but those were the three plans. My recollection was, in going to all those meetings, the one that was most supported was the $50 million-ish, $52 million-ish plan to build on that vacant land across from Elementary South, in addition to adding on to other buildings. Was the plan that in every single survey, in the phone polls, in the locals, and all the different things, was supported the most. Yet, then we got to a referendum, and the board decided that the entire community was wrong and put out a different plan in the referendum. And that's really, really concerning to me. So I'm with you on the need for this. Like, I have a kid in Elementary South who does music on a stage while gym is going on, does art in a portable, and goes across to Aspen to have gym class because there's not enough space for gym class. And that was with a kindergarten and a first grade class. Imagine the time wasted just getting jackets on in the winter to walk across a field and go do gym class. Or walk outside to go to a portable. And don't worry, you don't need your jacket, just run quickly. Let alone security issues when you're sending them outside to go to a classroom. So given what we're living in right now, there's a whole number of concerns. So I'm sold on the fact that we need new stuff. I don't disagree that we want to be careful. 100% we do. If you go crazy and you overbuild and then you're sitting with vacant buildings, 100% agree. But the reality is, even with zero growth right now, we're already over capacity. So we do have to do something. Portables are not an answer. They're just not. So I'm with you on that. But my trepidation comes in, you ask the community, what do you want? We gave an answer, and then we were given a referendum for something different. So I don't understand that. I guess that's my first question. And is that still the plan, to move forward with the board-created plan and not the community-supported plan?
As you said, that was a recommendation by the core team, but that was not an overwhelming in the polls or anything of that sort. It wasn't an overwhelming response which swayed one way or another as to what the community wanted of supporting on all the surveys that we did, on all the. It definitely was the core team's recommendation. But on the analysis that we did, Plan B, which is because we were going to build on A, the plan was to build a new elementary school, middle north, middle south, everything was still going to get touched, a lot of the buildings were going to get. It was a more expensive plan. It was also not an easy phased out plan that you want, because once you've built a building, you've sunk $27 million for that building was sunk. It couldn't have been phased out at any point. You would still have to build at other schools. So if you stayed empty, you stayed empty at that point. And so the plan that we chose, both the plans, building on each school versus building the elementary schools, solved all our needs. It was a plan that came from our core team. It was completely vetted out by them. It was what they recommended. We went with something that was more fiscally responsible. It was something that we could be phased. It would have lower overhead operational costs, which was what we went with too. And so that was the plan B that was chosen. As far as you saying that in the surveys and stuff, no, we did not get the majority people saying that they wanted A or versus they wanted the new elementary school. In the
statistics you presented us a year ago, it clearly was that A had the most support. So I'm confused because those were in the old slideshows that I even went back and reviewed. B was second, but it absolutely was in the phone poll and in the local and in all that stuff. It was listed. Not only was that the core team's recommendation, but that was the one that received the most support. B did receive the second most support, but that was the one that received the most support in the survey. So I guess that's just a pure numbers thing. My point is not to say that that's the plan that needs to be done. That's not my point. My point is that's where it gives me trepidation, right? Like that we spent hours. I sat in this room, I sat in other rooms, I came to almost every single one of those meetings. I would drive here straight from work and come to all those different meetings and go through all the different things. And we presented all the different information, and we talked through everything, and we listened to the architect, and we listened to all the different options, and then we gave the feedback, or the community, whoever responded, gave the feedback, and then something different that was kind of a hybrid of the things that was never discussed the entire time was all of a sudden what was put on the ballot. And I'm not surprised that it was voted down as a result, but you can understand where someone has hesitation then to say we're going to approve all this money and this is how it's going to be spent and this is how we're going to do it, when even just in putting out a plan, we were given something different than what we saw in a dozen different meetings. I guess it made me feel like, what was the point of even going to the meetings? It made me feel like a plan was going to be put out that was going to be analyzed no matter what we said, because that was what was put out. It was, and you may be 100% right that it may have been more fiscally responsible and that it may have been a better plan, but then why weren't those numbers shown to us? None of those numbers were presented to us about what that plan would do with overhead costs and what that plan would do with sunken costs and what the risks were. None of that was shown to us. Everything that was shown to us, based upon that, the community picked a certain plan. And then apparently other information was used to then pick something different, but then why not share that with us so that I know a number of people came up to me when we discussed about the referendum last time, because if you noticed, there weren't even a lot of people that voted on it, period, for or against it. There just weren't a lot of people that voted, period, on the referendum. And there was a lot of people that talked about the fact that it wasn't a known plan, and they voted against it because of that. Because all of a sudden it was something brand new that we had never seen in all those different meetings. Yes. So my other question is, in the current time, what is the plan for currently? Because no matter what we do, there is currently some serious needs at one of our, at Middle North and at Elementary South. There are some serious needs that need to happen like now for this coming fall. And because some of these options that are currently being presented are just not reasonable. Sending our kids to walk to a neighboring school is not an okay option. And that's what's currently happening. Sending our kids to walk to a neighboring school or walk to an outside classroom or do music on a stage while gym class is going on simultaneously next to them are not reasonable options for this community. So what is our plan in the short term to alleviate some of the things?
In the short term, as far as the plan goes, the only thing that we would be able to do would be portables, because that is a short-term plan. It is about the only thing, if the enrollment gets increased, we need to have kids in classrooms to teach them, educate them, and cuts to programming as to what we can do to kind of decrease the number of other activities that we can offer or programming that we can offer. We will have to do that because there is no other way. We can't fit 4,300 kids in classrooms. We've shown it, you've seen it, it is in the room. There is no other way to go around it. We can't build right now. We don't have the money to build. Whatever little space is getting, but it doesn't alleviate in other schools. So it will be either increased class sizes, some portables if we can fit them in certain ways, and cuts to programmings. That is a reality.
Thank you.
Hello. I've been to both presentations, and you can see I see the differences in the presentations. You're really kind of nailing down where the space issues are. You know, with the kindergarten center, how you have with the buckets, you're netting how many classes. You maybe send, if you're opening up 5 classes at South, they're being taken right back up again. We have that space issue. We know that. I think this is beyond brick and mortars, though. we need to enhance the experience for our students. We can't do that now. We don't have the space. Our teachers they're getting stressed. The system is getting stressed. If you're in the schools, I'm not saying you're not, anybody's not, but if you're in the schools, you see it. You definitely see that, is my child getting the best experience that we can provide for them? Work environment is directly related to production and productivity. I truly believe that. I think you'll be hard-pressed to find somebody who disagrees with that. If you go to work and you're having a rough, if it's not an ideal situation, are you going to be willing to really go that extra distance? Our teachers come in, new teachers come in, they're very idealistic. Give them 3 or 4 years in portables, in classes on the stage. You're going to beat them down and you're going to lose them. We have to do something. The plan that you guys have, if that's the plan, that's the plan. To Pete's point, I hear what you're saying. And I think that's why you guys didn't go with the new school, because there is that worry of an empty building, potentially. But I was looking at the Casarda report, I look at that too, and I was looking at some numbers that I had that I saw. It's right in line, high B, Series C, the classroom sizes. So we're there, and the Casarda report was taking into account the new developments, correct? We don't have that yet, and we're still right there. That's why I pointed out 44 to be over a high C. That's all it is. And we haven't taken in Melody Farms. We haven't taken in Cuneo, thank you. And we're only getting money from Cuneo, correct?
Yes.
Because of the TIF, right? Hopefully we can get something from the village, and I think we should get to the village meetings and say, hey, why don't you guys help us out, maybe something with the road construction over at the kindergarten center. That would help, if we wanted to, so we can do our part. But the work environment is key. The curriculum is key. We need to modernize the curriculum. I can't go back and say, oh, when I was a kid, we did it like this. Okay, we've evolved. I think we've progressed. If I had coding in 3rd grade, that would probably change my outlook, and maybe if that's something that I enjoyed, maybe that's what I would pursue. If I had some kind of science background earlier on, I would probably have done better in chemistry in high school. Okay? Who knows? Who knows? But let's give them the opportunity. Call it STEM, call it STEAM. I call it modernized curriculum. Let's get, where's the world going? No offense, but it's not really still in sewing and ironing and home ec. It's coding, app development, animation, media, something that we see every day, that we hold in our hand every day. Why can't we introduce our kids? I know for a fact that kids go to computer camps, coding camps, 2nd and 3rd grade. Now look, we have a great sports program in this community, absolutely. But to your point, we're not all athletes, right? Or who said that?
I did.
That was you. Okay, all right, just checking. So I'm all for it, but the plan has to be solid, for the community. You got to present it and say, this is going to work and this is why it's going to work, to get everybody's support. And I hope we can get as much support as possible. To your point, I think you said, you said that, should we go for more now?
Well, what I want to know is, in case folks agree, it seems anytime there's a referendum and somebody's got their hand up, and, oh, don't worry, there's going to be a sunset clause, or it's going to end at this point in time, that's when it goes back out. It just continues.
Well, sure.
So what
Yeah.
I want to know is, based on potential growth, we take into account that underlying area that we may get that maybe get developed, which we all know is going to get developed at some point. That's just the way it works. Are we prepared to do that, or are we going to be? I'm fine, brother.
Too late.
Well, it's usually for the people at home. So they can
Thank you. All I want to know is, are we going to be sitting here 8 years from now asking for another $40 million, or now the other school doesn't make sense to build it? So the projections, we just need to make sure that this is, fiscally, yes, are you spending the money on what you're supposed to be spending, and then are we going to be able to handle the growth, or are you immediately going to run out of room? and then we're going to have to build this other school anyway. So that's my concern, is making sure that we're able to do that, so we're not sitting here down the road.
That's really hard to look out, like Nick said, more than 10 years. So if you look back in history, back in 2003, 2004 is when we got the bond to build Town Line. So at that point in time, we knew, hey, we're running out of space. We built a brand new building, Town Line building, to house 900 kids. Now, 13 years later, we're back to where we're at. So yes, you could say we'll be back here in 15 years, but how are we going to know? So we did our best back then with the information that we had, knowing, okay, we built a 900 school building, we're pretty good, and we were good for 10 now
years,
13
exactly.
years. But now things have changed. So can we say for certain that this plan will take us 10, 15, 20 years in the future with no changes? No, I can't say that. But it's the best we can do with the numbers that we have.
You know, Casarda wrote in his report, I don't have a crystal ball. He uses those words, right? Okay, nobody has a crystal ball where we're going to go, all right? But we can say where we're at now and where we would like to be. We are growing. There's new communities coming in. There's empty nesters that are probably moving out sooner than later. Now, who moves in is determined by most likely the school system. Everyone raise their hand if they've had a good experience so far with their teachers. Okay, half of you this row put it down. The other half put it up. I'm serious. That's 5 years from now if we don't do anything. That's what's going to happen. What's going to happen to your property values? For you, in your case, you don't have kids, right? Why should you have to vote yes? Why should you have to spend more money, right?
Especially since our property values haven't come back and my taxes have still gone up 24%, almost 28% since in the last 12 years.
Right, and now there's a Lake County component to that we have no control over. But if you invest $3,000, if your average home is $350 and you put $300 a year in 10 years, it's $3,000. If we don't do anything, the value of your home is going to go down less than that, more than that, excuse me. If we maintain a 9 and a 10 school and have a great experience and a modernized curriculum recruiting good talent, it'll triple. Not the value, that 3,000 would triple, right? You'll get your money back is what I'm saying. But to Pete's point, you can't just build just to build because you don't know if you're going to fill it. You know, with the kindergarten center, hey, it's another transition for our child. If that's what our best move going forward, if that's where we're at, if we're in it now, then we support. I say K through 4, 5 through 8. But I don't think that's doable at this point. But that would be my idea. Sorry it took so long to get to my idea.
But I appreciate all the feedback tonight. A lot of food for thought, and I'll probably lose sleep as I do every time we have one of these meetings. I really don't want the next board 2, 3, 4 to have to put their hand back out again. You know, as we can see, even though it was 2003 or 4 the last time something came up for referendum and passed, 13 years goes by in a blink. So unfortunately, I think if it was within the board's control 100%, we could probably have a better crystal ball than just 10 years out. But without the help of the Village of Libertyville, the Village of Mundelein, and the Village of Vernon Hills, I think so much of that is out of our control that the 10-year projection is a fairly decent one. And I was going to ask Nick, I know the high school had an updated Casarda report. Do we have a copy of that?
Yes, I got that just last week. So.
Okay, so ours is not very old, but
Right,
theirs is
right.
even more recent, and I believe showed something similar.
Right, they're expecting some growth. And I'm sorry, didn't mean to.
No, go ahead.
If you see the high schools, I don't know if it's on their webpage. I'll ask their permission if I can post it on ours. But remember, when you look at that, it is a high school, so they're talking about 4 grades. But they do show expectation of similar trends and growth that we're experiencing.
Yeah, so, no, I don't want to put our hand back out again. And, you know, I'm a taxpayer here too, as we all are, and it's rough. But do I think my kids are getting a great education and my bang for my buck? I do. Otherwise, I wouldn't be sitting here. but I want that to continue, and right now, I'm a little concerned that we might be staring down the barrel of cutting programming, so.
My question relates to events today. Our schools were on a soft lockdown. Elementary South has portable classrooms. If we don't move forward with plans and all schools have portables, what happens to the students that are in a portable classroom when there's a soft lockdown? Because I think it's happened at least every couple years, if not more often.
I think the better question is what happens during a hard lockdown. No, I mean, I appreciate that, Holly. You know, the soft lockdown obviously was not any kind of imminent threat to the schools themselves, so that's the good news, right? Things are just going to happen in the community from time to time, and where we sit, we're on some really main corridors. But, you know, from the standpoint of the portables, I don't really see that those kids are at such an increased risk by having sat in a portable or by sitting in a portable during those lockdowns. I think the bigger risk is the time they're spending walking to and from a building to a portable or a portable to a building. I mean, listen, like the glass that is at the real classrooms in the real buildings, it's not bulletproof. I mean, you know, so it's not that I perceive the portables to be less safe as a structure. It's just I think the time spent going back and forth is the bigger risk. It was about an hour, yeah.
No, what we did is, I believe, I'll talk to Dr. Martin, but I believe when I talked to her today, brought him in and we didn't utilize the portables. We tried to do servicing inside. And in a soft lockdown, Mrs. Cleek is correct. It's the traveling between that is what's nerve-wracking. The portables as a classroom are secure. You know, the brick and mortar always seems better than those, but they are secure. But if we had to lock and stay in place, we would lock those and stay in place. They do have communication to the building. They do have a way to make sure they know what's going on. We would just leave them in there and conduct the day the best we could with them in that situation. But it is the travel back and forth. That's why we tried to put those portables as close to the building as we possibly could. So there's in inclement weather, but in something like this, that it's a quick access in and out. But it is concerning with if you have a soft or a hard lockdown, that we want to make sure every space that we have is secure and safe. And it's something that we do take seriously while we're trying to do it.
You guys have talked a lot about programming, and a lot of times I think people think of programming as special programs or the fine arts or things like that, but a lot of times programming can actually be the curriculum and the day-to-day. Can you guys talk a little bit about how the numbers and the large class sizes might impact the curriculum or the programming in the classes day-to-day?
Yeah, so when we're talking about program, we are talking about all the programming that occurs during the day. There are several ways we might be able to alleviate the stresses if we didn't have space. We could change our schedules, and students might be going to, excuse me, your art, your music, your PE, those types of things, shorter periods. So you're rotating them through the same space, but for a smaller period of time. That impacts the curriculum that comes from those courses. Class sizes, there's studies that show, 15 to 1, you start to make a difference between that. It's negligible according to some tests and things of that sort. But you get into just the common sense. I was an elementary teacher and an elementary principal. You just get into common sense. When you get into that 25, you get to 26, 27. If you get into that 29, 30, 31 range, it's just a management piece. Just think of time with the student. That's where the magic happens. We are not looking in a situation where it's just all large group instruction where the teacher gets up to a whiteboard and says, and goes through something for urban. Each child needs some individual attention at times or small group. The larger that class size, the less of that time starts to occur. And also we have people on top of each other in close proximity. It's very hard. You have multiple different types of learning styles. We all in this room have different ways of listening and understanding. So you increase those number of students in there, it impacts the ability for quality instruction for the students in math and reading. It would eventually start to have an effect 1 year, 2 years, but you would be talking, this would be going on for potentially a student's entire elementary career, and then that's where I have concerns that we've shortchanged them on some opportunities. Assessing that many students, we really ask our teachers to be diagnosticians with your children, to not just say, oh, you passed this, but really delve into why are you not maybe understanding a particular concept or standard that we're trying to teach, and then individualize to help them understand that. So all of that gets whittled away with the more students that a person has to work with. And we have wonderful teachers. They would do the best they could, but I would tell you, you get into that 30 range and you just, common sense will tell you. And then we've heard some folks mention, and even here this week, the workspace, the quality of work, the stress that puts on top of the teacher, that takes its toll after a while. And then what would that be with possible turnover or just not being as attractive as a district for hiring? We're a very attractive community and a very attractive district currently, but long term, if people don't see that there's a solution coming, that could have some impact. I hope that answered your question.
Hello. I just wanted to thank you for your time and your continued commitment and advertising and the postcards that come out and the reports you put together and the data that goes together, because what you have been elected to do is not an easy task. And it keeps changing, and it seems to be all smoothed out, and then something else happens. And then there's a new report, and then there's new data. We've got to figure it out again. I have also spent, like many of you in this room, we're the same people that keep showing up year after year, and I start to feel like such a sucker. But we're all in it for our kids and our communities and our tax dollars and our home values. We're in this together, but we're in it because you keep putting in the effort. The last time there was a big election, I took a packet to run for the school board in my hand. I went to the district office, and I didn't ever do it because I thought, I don't know if I can commit all of this time, because what you are doing is an incredible amount of time, and it's a huge sacrifice in all of your lives. And I am so grateful, and I'm sure all of us are so grateful for the time you are committing repeatedly with all of these issues as they come up. So I would say some of that now, the next step, if we're in agreement, a lot of us are in agreement about space is an issue. How we solve it, what we're going to do next, a lot of those next steps rest on us to keep the conversation going. We need to talk to our friends, we need to talk to our coworkers, we need to talk to the other parents at Little League games and soccer games and swim meets and birthday parties. We have to get more people to come, and we have to get more people to take the time to look on the website and find the CASARDA survey, read it, understand it, and ask the good questions that you all turned out to ask tonight. We need to continue the discussion, and we need to keep people talking. The voter turnout that you mentioned was embarrassing. I was horrified when I saw that like roughly 2,000 people voted last time. That's, I don't know, it's just embarrassing. We have to get more people to care and come out and ask the questions and dedicate their time and have intelligent discussions. So thank you very much.
Thank you for saying that.
Sadly, that is normal turnout for one of those elections, so.
That was what I was going to say, is that the last election was a local election and not a lot of people are going to turn out. But we're looking at, if we did go for a referendum, we would be looking at going for a referendum at an election where the governor is going to be chosen. A lot of people in the community will show up for that election. So the time is now. If we want to get a vote in on a good election cycle, this next election is going to be our chance. So we need a good plan, and I totally agree. I see how much time it takes you guys to do this on the board, and that's wonderful. But I do think as a community, we all have to come together, especially the parents and the community members here tonight. If we're going to go for something, we need to go for it at the next election cycle. And some of this cannot fall on the board. It has to fall on us too, to work together as a team to get this to go forward.
Thank you.
I wanted to thank you all for coming anyway. I mean, really. One of the comments that was, I don't see her, maybe she actually, was the presentation is the same. The data doesn't change much. You know, we did a CASADA report in 2015-16. We're not going to run one again. It's a lot of money, it's a lot of time. We just need to wait to do it after a while. The numbers are not going to change from 2015 to 2017, 18 in 2 years. The numbers till 2025, 26 will probably stay the same on his report. We'll just go out a couple more years from what he can predict and how the demographer works. When we did the presentation on the 21st, we heard feedback. They wanted some more. We did change it a little bit. Maybe it doesn't look like that, but we did. We are getting the input. We are trying to get the information out. We are trying to get everything that you need to make an informed decision. So, you know, we did the last meeting. We thought the word of mouth would get away. More people would come this time. We didn't have a turnout. Our next meeting is pretty much going to be the same presentation. I'm going to tell you that right now up front, because we want to hear from other people who will come, who will hear from you and say, okay, I'll go and see this presentation. We all know, until or unless we've all had a driving ticket and had to take the online class, we know how that goes. You make people see it online, it's not going to work out that well. They will not, you know, they will not look at it. They'll go through it. We thought presenting it well, if we did a good job, people would come and listen to us. People would get more educated. We'll keep trying. You can tell people to come. Next presentation is going to be the same. After that, the one after that is a working meeting. We are going to narrow it down. If we hear any input, as we heard from the gentleman that he wanted, you know, he thought of phases. In the same aspect, if you want it in phases so that we don't overbuild, yes, a phase will probably alleviate a small problem, but if not, instead of coming back in 10 years that we came with Town Line, the next board will come back in 5 years because you didn't alleviate all the problem. You just alleviated what was needed and a priority. Options will weigh out, but that will be a working meeting for the 30th that we have, where we will see, we'll come up with options and we'll give you maybe 2 options, 3 options, whatever we all come up with, 7 of us, and see along with our experts who will give us the guidance to tell us that. So this was a holistic plan. It was a plan that went about 10 years out. Anything smaller than that is always doable, but yes, people after us will come back. We came back after about 13 years from 2002, 2003 for the Town Line building. They'll come back. Nobody can predict more than that. Before I take any more questions, John, is there something from the teachers you would like to share with our community, their perspective? He's the union president. This is Mr. John Langland. He's our teacher at Middle South, and he has a perspective from being here for a long time, as well as being a president.
A very long time that I've been here. The only thing that I would really like to emphasize on the behalf of the teachers is we've been living through this process now for a number of years, dealing with some of the space crunches at each of the buildings, and I think the teachers have done a really nice job, as you heard expressed in the video earlier by the principals. And I think we just really want to emphasize we need to do something, and soon, because that we're concerned if we were not to do this in the upcoming voting cycle, that it's going to push things back really another year, and I don't think we can wait that long. So whatever plan the community comes up with, the teachers very much support and want to do best for our kids, and but we very strongly recognize the need to do something. And so on behalf of the teachers, I appreciate you all being here as well, you know, another evening out. And, but this is an important thing, I think, on behalf of all of us here. So thank you very much.
Can I just say one more thing really quick? Me too. If you have neighbors that are taxpayers but don't have children enrolled, if you could encourage them to watch, email us, participate, encourage them to come with you next time, that would be helpful. They are a huge part of the voter turnout, but they're a really important stakeholder in the community. So even though they don't have children to educate through Hawthorne anymore, their input and feedback is important. So if you could encourage them to do that, and I would encourage everybody, although myself and some of us do see some of the posts on Facebook, it is really not an actually effective way to communicate your feedback. It kind of lets me keep a pulse on the community, but it's not actually a way to get the message to the board. So if people could actually formulate those into some kind of outline or email, and then submit it that way, so that would be more effective to actually have the 7 of us hear that. That would be awesome. Thank you.
Yep, I've got a last minute thing too. So one of the questions, what kind of feedback are we looking for? So a lot of this meeting was information going that way. You asked questions, we answered some, we gave you a presentation, a lot of information is going that way. So the board really is trying to get feedback, but we're not specific, so you don't really know what we're asking from you. So I'm going to give you homework. We're in school, you now have homework. You've seen the presentation, you've seen what the needs are from the principals. You can find the plan that we have. We're not tied to this plan. So you can take a look at it, and that's where we're looking for your feedback. What makes sense? What's too much if there's too much? What's not there if you see something that's missing? So help us come up with the better plan if this is not the best plan. So look at what our needs are, look at what we propose to address those needs, and then give us the feedback. Yeah, this is good. We really don't need this piece because I don't see any why. Or you're missing this whole new piece because no one ever thought about it. That's what we're looking for in terms of feedback. So there's your homework. Either send it to us, send it to Sonali, send it to Nick, send us all emails, or come to the next meeting with those with that type specific feedback as to what do you want to see in our plan.
And when you said, it's like, you know, when we put up that $42 million plan, it is a holistic plan. It touches everything. It solves for everything. And I completely understand if the community feels we would overbuild. But what is the number that you would want? If you tell us that number, we will come up with a plan. But in the same aspect, remember, it will solve part of the problem. So in 5 years' time, please don't hold the next board responsible that they couldn't think of more because it wasn't their fault. You know, it is what we will solve for what we got with the numbers you give us. After that, they will come back because it won't solve for everything. Just be prepared. You know, the community should be prepared that for the next board that they will come back because there might be some other needs. But if it's a number that you feel that is needed, if you think there's a school that needs it more than the other, that is what we are looking for. But you have to realize it's an equitable plan. It's not equal. So if that school needs it more, Middle North and Elementary South would get it. Somebody else won't. Doesn't mean they don't have the needs, but there won't, it is going to, those kids are going to.
It's what's most pressing.
It's most pressing. And then they'll come back in 4 years. They'll come back in 5 years. But then you can't get mad at them. Please don't get mad at them. I just feel for them. I won't be here by that time, but I feel for them.
Mike Shank, are you still here? Are you still here? So like when you gave that example of like K4 and then 5-8, if you had thought about it, could you send in how that would lay out and how that would work? Because like off the top of my head, I'm sitting here going, our middle schools are already crunched. How would we make them a 4-grade school instead of a 3-grade school? Oh, so a bigger addition onto the middle schools. Okay. Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay, so yeah, so if you could kind of.
This is to build up at North and to build out, if you understand what I'm saying, at.
Okay, that question we have an expert who can answer.
Is that considered
because the thing is that was actually looked at. So there's some people on the core team who can tell you. One of the things, and I'll answer this, it's not directly related to what you're saying. Grade schools. We can't right size all our schools. Our schools have different capacities. That is one of the biggest problems with that. And we can go into the, you know, our architects can tell you why they can't be right sized. We had to build the kindergarten building because we cannot leave the kindergarten building where they are in that school itself and build for those 5+ whatever classrooms it's needed. So in Elementary South, it would be the 5 classrooms that were moving out, so 5 plus the 7 that we are right now. So it doesn't have space around it to build for 12 classrooms along with PE space and stuff. Because when you take out the 125 kids, your PE space or the stress on that PE space was going down. So that kindergarten building was an essential component because the way our buildings are laid out, the way the land is, the green spaces around it is what, am I saying it right, Jason? There is not enough space to build out that much on it. Building 2 levels is also very expensive in certain cases because then you have a lot of dead space because the minute you build 2 levels, you have to get elevators and staircases and they take up a lot of dead space. Okay.
Yeah,
but I have Jason Lemke here to answer all those architectural questions, so please take advantage of that.
But to the point that the board is sharing, if you have thoughts, ideas, and concepts, send them in, and we will vet those. And if we have answers to why some things may or may not look, we'll send them back. But you never know. Somebody might send something in, and we look at it again, and we look at it differently. There might be some solution. So I'd encourage folks either watching or here, don't talk yourself out of an idea. Just throw it out, and then we can look at it and make sure that we have a chance to provide that answer or feedback.
Nick, I think to your point, it's Sonali's point, that's a great thing to get out to the community because that is what you're looking for, that one thing, right? And I know you've vetted a whole lot, and I think, we should hand it to our new board president. She has done a lot of work on her own. She's done a lot of, it's a thankless job, but we're still looking for that one thing maybe.
Right. Somebody might have something that we don't know. So please, folks that are watching or
but
here.
But we are on a time scale, so it has to come in within a certain time. It can't be forever because as we've heard from everybody, we need to do this now. So if you have, like I said, 30th is a working meeting. We'll come up with plans from whatever the community. As I said, some answers we already have because our core team did a fabulous job on vetting a lot of things out. Some of the answers we'll be able to send it to you directly by email. If it's not on the web page, we have tons and tons of data to go through. We can send it to you. And that'll be a working meeting. So if there's anything in between now and then, people have questions, people want to hear, we are here. Yes, go ahead. No, go ahead. No, just he'll give it to you.
Where can we find a breakdown that shows what class sizes are at all the individual schools? Is that information available to us?
Are you on Facebook? Terry's been posting it every single day, but
oh, I'm sorry.
So I know it. No, my point is, so I know it exists.
Okay,
so
good.
Yeah.
So where did you say? Just on.
You got that from Nick, right?
Okay.
But if you're not on Facebook or that's not where you choose to get your information, that all came from Nick, right?
Right, yeah. We'll work at putting up some analysis of that as a question. So let me try to get some of that information up. And what I always tell folks with numbers, what I give you today is going to change tomorrow because I'm going to have somebody move in or somebody move out, but you get to see a general trend and you'll see where they're at. So let me put some information up for folks on that and give some information.
Anything else? We have to adjourn.
We'll kind of close it right now, but we'll stay around. So any questions or anything that you have, please, we'll hang out as long as you want to answer any individual questions, any information that you want, anything you want sent to you. If you give us a number, your email address or something, we will get it to you, in any form, in the formats that we have, or, simplify them or take them out. We have tons of things. So do I have a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
Do I have a second? I second. Motion by Robin, seconded by Bess. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. 5 ayes, 0 nays. We are adjourned.
Thank you, Sonali, for all your hard work.
Thank you. So we are here. Anybody, if you want, give us your number. Tell us the information you want. We'll get you there.
Well, maybe you'll be. I want to go take some coffee and talk myself out.